Are we ready to get started for our Taste of Shabbos Cholent edition? Welcome, welcome. I want to tell you that this week's show, the theme is, listen very carefully, taking your spirituality, what inspires you, and turning it into something practical. In this week's Torah portion coming up is Chaye Sarah. And in Chaye Sarah, we have the death of Sarah, and Abraham. But one thing that they have totally taught all of us is the importance of passing down our traditions, passing that baton, passing down from one generation to another. And let me tell you, there's only one way to do that. It's not through concepts. It's not through just thoughts. But when we could take ideas and concepts and act out on them and make them something concrete, when we could take a concept and transfer it into an experience, that's when we've actually grasped what Judaism is all about. And tonight, we are going to hear from different participants about what they've done after they've been inspired, how they were able to transform their sparks of spirituality into something practical. And with that, they could pass it down from generation to generation to generation. And of course, we're going to learn how to make cholent at the same time. I mean, that is like the traditional food that gets passed down. Besides challah, of course, it gets passed down from generation to generation. So I would love to call on our very first speaker who's going to really bring home this message. I am calling on Cheryl Epstein. Cheryl, hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Jordana, how are you?
Good, good. So now Cheryl originally was from Rockland, right? But now she's moved and she's more in the Bergen area. And first of all, she's wearing a beautiful color. I love that blue on you, Cheryl. That's gorgeous.
Thank you.
She's going to tell us a few words of inspiration and what she did with it. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm really thrilled to be here and share. In December of 2016, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to be one of 17 women to be selected to go to Israel through Jewish Women's Renaissance Project, now known as J-Inspire. Almost 4 years later, I felt so inspired that I consistently light Friday night candles, and it has become a big part of my spiritual journey. One of our leaders, Betty Fromowitz, sends group messages every Thursday reminding everyone when Shabbos is celebrated. It reconnects our group of ladies and gently reminds us to light candles. I now remind my 76-year-old aunt to light Shabbos candles, a practice she had never done before. Since the pandemic started, I have renamed Fridays Mitzvah Fridays. A commandment of Jewish law, mitzvahs should be done every day, but I have consciously devoted myself as a pre-Shabbos ritual. These past several months, I have found such joy and happiness by giving back, especially during some of the darkest and challenging days during the pandemic. It was a frightening and unprecedented time, especially during the lockdown period. Some of my mitzvahs include, of course, giving tzedakah, working with a local Chabad by delivering challah for supporters of several fundraisers for frontline workers in our local hospitals, as well as essential workers and teachers. Driving over Shabbos meals to the sick and homebound, distribute Rosh Hashanah holiday packages since it was not safe to meet in person during the high holidays. Donating groceries for an ongoing food drive in my community. And lastly, I reach out to elderly friends and family members who are lonely and isolated and often limited in their normal activities due to the virus. These small acts of kindness have given me a sense of purpose and well-being, and hopefully added some light to others. I have a more peaceful feeling of calm and a better spiritual connection due to this wonderful Jewish organization of J-Inspire. So that is my story.
That was awesome. Should I tell you my favorite part? And this is what we had spoken about. And everybody should know that really, when Cheryl and I spoke the first time, I think the first thing, Cheryl, was you the one who said, oh my God, were you the one who said, oh my gosh, you really like that? Or it might've been somebody else when I spoke to them on the phone and they said, you really have all that energy. And I'm like, yeah, I really have all that energy. It might've been someone else. I'm not sure. But, but Cheryl said, she started telling me her story. And I said, Cheryl, you just made the theme of the show. This was amazing. I couldn't believe how she had this concept of mitzvah Fridays. Now, of course, as she said, every day should be dedicated and we should have mitzvot and commandments. We should be doing them every day. But by being mindful and dedicating a specific day and saying, no, this is the day that we're going to work on it. She said to herself, I'm going to dedicate my time and I'm going to say every Friday, I'm going to do this. And then she enters into Shabbos with this wonderful feeling of uplifting, because she just uplifted other people. So I think that is a great lesson for all of us that, oh my gosh, see, people are writing in the chat right now. I don't know if you see it, they're writing, wow, they love the Mitzvah Friday concept. And that is awesome that you took something that inspired you. This project inspired the trips that you went on. And you said, how am I going to transition? How am I going to get that into my daily life? And you did it. A beautiful, wonderful message. Everyone is loving it on the chat. Thank you so much, Cheryl. They're so proud of you. Oh, yay, Cheryl. Amazing. There you go. You rock. That's what everyone's saying there. Thank you, Cheryl. Are we ready? Are we ready for our first cook, Eliza?
We are. She just needs to turn on her video so we can spotlight her.
Miriam, if you could just turn on your video, you could go to what we could do is we could put on the slide, show the slide, and hopefully by then she'll put on her video. She's going to show us. Now, what's interesting is when we make Cholent, what's a very big topic in today's day and age, this is just when we share the slides. Of course, Elisa's going to share the slides in the chat. I also put a little summary for everybody of the background of Cholent, even though Miriam, I think, is going to speak about it a little bit, because there's a difference between Cholent, then there's something called chamin, which is Hebrew for more of a Sephardi Cholent. And there's something that's very popular, that's gluten-free. We hear that all the time, especially I as a teacher, I hear it, gluten sensitive, people have certain issues dietetic wise. So we're gonna learn today about a gluten-free Cholent. Miriam, are you ready? There's the gluten-free version and she's gonna talk to us about it. Is she on now?
Should we skip and go to Sarah and then come back to Miriam? Because I don't see her in the meeting anymore.
Okay, we could do, Sarah, you okay with that? Sarah, we're gonna start with you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so everybody, you're gonna hear the coolest accent in 1 second, okay? I told Sarah when she comes on, first of all, she looks beautiful. I love that top. And your kitchen looks great. But you're gonna hear her talk in a second, and you're gonna hear she has a gorgeous accent. So could you tell everyone where you're from originally?
Hi guys, I'm Sarah Eisenstein. I was born in South Africa, as you can all hear, and I actually came here 37 years ago. My accent is still very strong. I work very hard in preserving it.
Good. Did any of your kids get the accent at all?
No, my kids don't really love my accent so much.
Oh my gosh.
So
we're gonna have a schmooze with them.
Yeah, well, all right.
Okay, so let's see, you're gonna do a regular Cholent for us.
Right, Miriam was gonna start, so I'm gonna let her do an introduction to Cholent, and I'm gonna focus on the Cholent that I'm gonna make for you, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we are gonna make tonight, I'm gonna show you how to make a traditional Cholent. Now, Cholent is one of those things that can mean different things to everyone. There are some people that like Heimische Cholent, which Heimische Cholent is really a savory Cholent. Then there are other people that like.
What does Heimisch mean? You're using.
Heimisch is the Yiddish word for the home. So it really predates back to years ago, from before the war. My father-in-law was a Holocaust survivor, and he used to tell us all the time that he was actually born in Auschwitz. And he used to tell us that on Shabbos, before the war, his mother used to make a Cholent, and the whole town did. They used to make their Cholents, cook it the whole day, And then before Shabbos, everybody would carry their Cholent pot to the bakery, and they would store the Cholent, the hot Cholents, on the coals from the bakery that had just made the challahs for Shabbos, and leave it there. And then the next morning, everybody would go back to the bakery, pick up their Cholent pot, and come home and eat the Cholent. And he swore that it was the most delicious Cholent ever because it was on the coals. So, we can't duplicate that tonight, but I'm going to do my best to give you a Heimische Cholent, which is a Cholent from the Alter Ham, from way back when, okay? So what I did was,
instead of the coals today, that's probably why we use a crock pot, correct? Because we can't.
Right. So Miriam is going to make a Cholent in a crock pot, and she will show you. I'm going to do it in a regular pot on the stove. But the wonderful thing about a Cholent is it is so versatile. It doesn't matter. You can do it in the crock pot. You can do it in a pot. You can even do it in a 9x13 if you want. It is so easy.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a specific recipe tonight, but feel free to add, change. I went light on the spices because I didn't want to be too salty or too spicy. Each one of you should, when you make it, let me start and then we'll go through the spices.
Go ahead.
So what I did was, I'll just show you 1 second. I took my pot and I started without you because it's going to take time. I browned my onions in a 1/4 cup of oil. So I took a 1/4 cup of olive oil and I heated it up, and I took 2 Vidalia onions, chopped it up. It doesn't matter, they don't have to be a specific size. And I also took 3 cloves of garlic. You can use I used frozen garlic because it's just easy. You could use regular garlic. You can, whatever you want to do. And I sauteed it till it got that beautiful brown color. And I'm going to turn on my fire now. And what we're going to do is, the onion's already hot. I'm going to take my meat. So it doesn't matter what kind of meat you use. You can use, I have here boneless short rib. You can use cheek meat. You can use a stew meat, whatever you find and what your family prefers. That's the meat you should use. It's delicious. If you want to add a little bit more flavor, what you can do is you can add bones. You can buy a strip of ribs and put the ribs in, or you can buy marrow bones. Any sort of bones will enhance the flavor of your Cholent. I personally don't like to put bones in because it's not so healthy. So I try to do it without it. You don't really need it. If you like to, gesundheit. So what I do is I take my meat and I'll put it in the pot, and then you'll see, I'm going to hold the camera for you in a second. You'll see that I just let the meat get that nice coloring. Saute it just a little bit. Let me see if I can use both hands here. 1 second.
Got to multitask.
Yeah. Just be patient with me.
We are.
Just so that you could, the meat should be turned. You see the color, how it's coming?
It a little bit.
Yeah. We're browning it just a little bit. Now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be browned. You can take everything you want and throw it in the Cholent pot together. It'll still come out delicious. The sauteed onions with the garlic adds that extra kick of flavor, which makes the Cholent. My daughter, she eats the gluten-free Cholent because she can't have gluten. She says that the fried onions add so much to the Cholent. So if you want to do that, then you can. If not, just throw it in. Once I've got my meat in the pot sauteing, I will take my potatoes. I'm just going to rinse at the water. You can add your potatoes.
You had them ready in cold water, didn't you?
I had them. What I did was I peeled them and I put them in cold water today so that they were waiting the whole time. I will tell you, if you're making a Cholent that you're going to leave to cook overnight on Friday night, what I usually do now, you can see I cut the potatoes up like smallish. When I do my Cholent for Shabbos and I leave it overnight, I always leave the potatoes whole. And the reason I do that is because sometimes they disintegrate. And we like potatoes. So it's better for me to take out a whole potato, cut it up. When I'm serving it, then have half the potatoes that are they're disintegrated. Okay. And then again, all I'm doing is I'm incorporating those potatoes into the meat. Okay. At this point, I'm going to flavor the cholent a little bit. So you all have a recipe that I think, Jordana, it's up on the...
They have it. She put the link in the chat.
Okay, good. So there's a recipe. I took my salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and I'm going to add this to the food. Okay. And then paprika. Now, paprika also, you can put a lot more paprika. You can put less paprika. I used sweet paprika. You can use smoked paprika if you want. It depends on what flavor you're looking for. And then I add this also. Okay. And I'm just going to incorporate. I'm going to show you in 1 second. I know you all want to see into the pot. 1 second. Hold on. You see? You just incorporate all those flavors and try and get all the spices all around. Okay. And then once you've done that, I've got this is what I did was I took my beans and my barley. Now, when I make an overnight cholent, I don't even soak it because it's going to cook the whole night. So I'll rinse the beans and I'll rinse the barley. Because I'm not cooking this cholent tonight, I soaked the beans and the barley this morning, and I rinsed it and dried it, and I'm just going to add it into my pots, just like that. And again, incorporating all the flavors into the cholent itself.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Okay. And then once that is done, I'm going to take my water, which I boiled first. I usually use boiling water because what'll happen if you put cold water in the pot, it'll slow your cooking process. So I take boiling water and...
Look at the tips. I didn't even know that one. There you go.
And I just cover the food. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. Let me just show you what it looks like, and then let me just show you quickly.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
A couple of things to keep in mind. You see how it looks like there's a lot of water in the pot?
Yes.
There is a cup of barley and a cup of beans in the mixture. The barley is going to grow. So make sure that while this is cooking, you may need to add more water. You may need to add, some people like to add chicken stock. Some people like to add barbecue sauce. If you want it sweet, you can put in ketchup. If you want to add some honey or brown sugar, it'll also make it a bit sweet. So it depends on what your family likes to do. I know my son was telling me today, we were talking about Cholent, and he was telling me that when he was in yeshiva, the boys used to go into the kitchen and they used to put beer into the cholent. Yeah. So anything can go. There's no wrong answer here. Anything you do with cholent is amazing. You can also put just as a side dish, as a side thought, you could add whole eggs. You take raw eggs right before Shabbos in the shell, and you just plop them in the pot and leave them till the next morning. They're actually delicious. And you take them out the pot, peel them, and they've got this beautiful brown color.
That's a very Sephardi thing. That's a Sephardi.
Very Sephardi. My son-in-law's Sephardi. So yes, it's a very Sephardi thing. Also, his mother was telling me that they put chickpeas in the cholent.
Yes, chickpeas, wheat.
Right, and the Sephardim call their cholent chamim, which means hot food. So I wish I could make a Sephardi cholent. Or somebody else to do that.
Well, we're going to come back to you. We're going to come back to you and see the finished product. But I'd love to call on somebody else for some words of inspiration, telling us how they took their spirituality to the next level. So Mim, where's Mim?
I'm here.
Hi, Mim. Where are you from, Mim? Why don't you tell everybody where you're from?
I'm from Toronto, but I live in Scottsdale now.
Okay, she's originally from Toronto, but she lives in Scottsdale. Okay, which place is warmer?
Today, it was actually warmer in Toronto. It was just nuts. Yeah, it was crazy.
Okay, so what would you like to share with us, Mim?
What I wanted to share with everybody was how I came from a conservative background in Toronto, where my home was. My mom lit Shabbos candles. I think my dad did Kiddush. We had challah. That was probably it. Shul 3 times a year. And how I came to keep Shabbat. And it all started when I was 15. I went to Israel on a 7-week teen tour. So on that tour, there were 7 Shabbats, and they were magical in Israel. And it was the first time I saw what Shabbat was supposed to look like and supposed to feel like. And from that time until I turned 50, I wanted it, I thought about it, I remembered it, and I wondered how I was going to do it. And finally, around the time I turned 50, my husband and I made the decision we're going to start doing it in pieces. So the first thing we did was we started to take our car out of the garage before Shabbat and park it outside, so the next morning when we drove to shul, we wouldn't have to use the electric garage opener. So that was the baby steps that we kind of took. Our rabbi at the time told us some people do something that he likes, which was they make one room Shabbat. And in that room, no TV, no cell phone on Shabbat, and it'll become a sacred place. You're going to love that room so much that with time, you're going to add another room and then another room until your whole house is Shabbat. And I always loved that idea, even though it's not what we did, but I love to pass that one on. It's a way to do it gradually in baby steps, so it doesn't feel overwhelming. Because our kids were in college at that point, it was a hard decision, hard for them, but they saw that it was meaningful for my husband and I, and they came to understand at least why we were drawn to it. So we moved homes, we sold our home, we bought a home near our shul so we could stop driving and walk to shul on Shabbat. And it was the very first Shabbat in our new home. I had invited close friends, made a really special dinner. I was so excited. I lit my Shabbat candles. I closed my eyes. I said the prayer. I was crying. And when I opened my eyes, only one of the 2 candles was lit. So now I started crying again, and I begged God, please don't let my candles go out. Not this night, not my first Shabbat. And I actually got scared that maybe it was like an omen or something. Anyways, I decided I had to leave it alone. I wasn't going to relight. And I walked away and I said some more prayers. And after about 5-10 minutes, I decided, okay, I'm walking back. It's either lit or it's not. And it was lit and it was glowing, both of them. And I learned that night that God had heard my prayer, but I've learned since then, prayers aren't always answered that quickly. And sometimes it can be years or even your whole lifetime till a prayer is answered. And sometimes the answer is no. But that night my prayer got answered. So we had the most beautiful first Shabbat in our new home. And I told my husband he had to sing with everybody. We had to have, the benchers out so everybody could sing together, because if you don't sing, it's just a dinner party. And it was magical, just like I wanted it to be. And since then, I've learned how to make challah. I used to be a baker, like I love to bake, but I'd never baked with yeast. And if you want to learn how to make challah so that your house feels like Shabbat and smells like Shabbat, it's really easy. You can go to a million YouTubes. You can go to a challah bake. I'll teach you if you want to get in touch with me. Learn how to make challah. Take some baby steps. It is the most meaningful, beautiful thing I've ever done that has changed my life. And join me.
I love it. I love it. I tell you that Shabbat room concept is unbelievable. I love the idea of the baby steps. It's just a beautiful, we're hearing such beautiful ways to make our spirituality practical tonight. From Mitzvah Fridays to Shabbat rooms to learning how to make a cholent and this beautiful stew. We're going to call on our next cook. Our next cook right now is Miriam. Miriam,
I have to apologize in advance for the lack of reception. I don't know why, but it keeps taking me off, and I don't know why.
Okay,
Anyway,
but I
normally
have a
I-
question for you, Miriam. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's not your fault, that's for sure. Anyway, I apologize, everybody. So anyway, my name is Miriam Schwebel. I just wanted to say, the idea about Cholent in general, the idea of it is that we wanted to have, Jews have on Shabbos traditionally 3 large feasts. And in order for it to be an important feast on Shabbos morning, we tried to have meat and we tried to have it hot. So Cholent, like Sarah said, chamim is the Sephardi way of saying Cholent, means hot. And Cholent also comes from the word either hot or from the idea of lying, it like kind of lays on the fire all night so that you can eat it the next day. And the idea is that, so Cholent came about because they were looking for a food, you could take a small piece of meat, because traditionally Jews were very, very poor. They took a small piece of meat and bones, and they added all the barley and potatoes and all the different things, and they were able to make a whole meal for a lot of people out of it with a very little bit of meat. And the idea was you put it in before Shabbos and you heat it up. I'm doing it in a crock pot. Sarah just showed you the pot. And either way, it sits on the fire or on the crock pot until you eat it the next day. So anyway, so you literally just throw the ingredients in. Mine is even easier than Sarah's. If you look here at the crock pot, you'll see there is keep warm, low, and high. So I like to cook it a little bit on high, then I put it on low for about 8 or 12 hours, somewhere in there. And then I put it on keep warm when it's ready before Shabbos, and it could stay keep warm over Shabbos. But anyway, you kind of have to experiment with each crock pot. And my cholent that I'm doing today is new for me. I've only done it the last few years. It's gluten-free. Sarah did a more traditional cholent. In my case, in this cholent, you can do the same thing. The spices are figured out for you already so that you can, if you make this cholent exactly, it's going to come out very good, and it's gluten-free. I leave out the potatoes, but you can put in potatoes. So I'm going to just I'll put in the, and then here is a cup of short grain brown rice. Can you see how much it looks like barley? Short grain brown rice and beans.
You know, it's interesting, Miriam.
Pour that in.
While you did, I just want to tell you, somebody put in the chat that they use turnips.
I can't hear you.
They use turnips instead of
Sorry.
potatoes.
I apologize. I don't hear anything.
Barley.
I don't even know if you're talking. I'm going to keep going. Here, you can put in these potatoes, garlic, diced garlic, salt, and the pepper and the paprika I put in, and the meat. And then the water. And I can ignore it for the next 8 hours if I want to. I'm not sure if you can see this. I hope you can.
Yes.
This is the raw cholent.
Now, can I tell
Oh,
everybody
I can hear you.
a little
Hooray.
tip? Miriam, a little tip that people might not realize. You can
Sorry?
find in the store inserts for the
I don't
crock
hear you.
pot, like liners. So it makes the cleanup very simple.
They have bag liners. I can show right.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier to clean.
Yes,
Definitely.
correct.
You can do that too.
So Miriam, can you come back?
Anyway,
See the
I
finished.
tried to make it a little leaner, so sorry?
I said, okay, continue. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I was going to say, we're going to come back
Sorry,
to you.
this cholent, if you're, depending on what kind of a diet a person's on, if they need to eat gluten-free, this is a gluten-free cholent. If you want to make it a lower carb cholent, it has the brown rice, but I don't put in the potatoes, things like that. You really, like Sarah said, you can just literally throw in the kitchen, everything but the kitchen sink, you know?
Does it matter
And it
when you
really
put the
does
spices in?
taste good.
Does it
Sorry?
matter when you put the spices in? People want to know.
Does it matter?
When you put the spices in, the spices.
Does not matter. You literally throw it all in and ignore it. I am not kidding. It just
Okay.
cannot get easier.
Okay, so we're going to come back to
Anyway,
you.
I just wanted to say one, okay, that's it. If we can go on.
You want to say one more thing? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that something that my husband always likes to say at the Shabbos table there to new people. Shabbos is the 7th day, obviously. And many of the foods, all the foods that we eat on Shabbos have the numerical value of 7. Each letter has a numerical value. And it's called mispar katan, the small value, meaning like fish is 4 and 3, dalet and gimel, 4 and 3 is 7. Meat comes out to 70, which is 7. chicken, everything comes out to the numerical value of 7. And it's really interesting. Even candles is the numerical value of 7. Ner is a candle is 7. You know, all symbolizing and, you know, alluding to Shabbos. And but people always say, well, what about the Cholent? So Cholent is one of those foods. It's so hearty and it's so forgiving. You just add a little more, and it'll come out to 7. So,
Very
so
good.
but anyway, it's really it's the easiest thing, and it's a full meal for as many people. Somehow, it can always feed as many people as you need. But anyway, go on.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
true. Keeps on going. It's like grows on its own. Thank you so
Right.
much. We're going to come back to you. And now we're going to go to Michelle. Michelle is going to give us some words of inspiration. I want to just let everyone know something about Michelle, because, you know, a lot of times the participants, I really don't know them. Even though I interact so beautifully with everyone, I don't necessarily know them, and I would have just had a few conversations with them. But Michelle is a totally different story. Michelle, I've known now for a little bit, and I'm sure all the ladies that are here tonight are inspirational. But Michelle, I know firsthand, is inspirational. I mean, this woman, every time she learns, she takes on something else. Anything that inspires her, she takes it one step further. I even happen to learn with her once a week. So I know that on a personal level, but just listen to what she can do. I mean, you might get tired just by hearing all the things that she's accomplished, but it is just mind-blowing how you can transform your life from pure spirituality to pure practicality. So Michelle, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
You really built me up here. I hope I fulfill everyone's expectations. So anyway, everyone knows I love learning. So I would learn as I normally would. And then the pandemic started. And I was sort of like thrown for a loop because a lot of the normal regular routines that I would be doing just didn't happen. So what did I do? I tuned into more of Project Inspire's MindFlex learning. I knew if I would just go into a deep dive of learning, what could be so bad? The best thing I could do is better myself in my learning, and then hopefully I could transfer some of those learning skills out into the real world. So the bottom line is, the most important thing that I think we're all seeking right now is purpose in life, meaning, how do we make our lives better? If we can make our lives better by helping other people, we are making a difference in the world. We can't change the world, but we can change the world in little baby steps. So what did I do? I said, well, I've got to do something now. I can't just sit around and learn. I got to get out there and try to make a difference in the most safe way possible. So I decided I would contact the local Chabad rabbi of Woodcliff Lake, Rabbi Dov Drizin, and I asked him, is it possible that there would be any volunteer opportunities for me? I know that I can't go crazy, especially because my husband would have a heart attack, knowing that I'd be out there trying to save the world and then bringing home all that infection into the house. So the rabbi said, yes, you can do some food shopping for people. We have a lot of elderly families that need help. So I said, great. So I decided I would go out there, and I did it a couple times. One family, actually, a couple that's 80 and they have an autistic son who's 28 that they had to bring in from a residential home. And I saw how important it was that I was helping this family. But then I started getting nervous because the COVID count started to go up. So I said to the rabbi, I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to do this. It's scary to go out there. And then I had the idea. I said, and that's basically another thing that I've learned in my life. If you try to do good in the world and you are helping other people, guess what? Hashem is going to be supportive. And I hope and pray that he could put a shield around me and protect me. So when I go out there and do my food shopping and help other people, that I won't get sick. And that sort of took the whole anxiety level away. As long as I did my best to, be conscious of keeping clean and not putting my hands on my face and keeping the families protected, that I would be able to do what I need to do to make my life more purposeful. And guess what? I've now built friendships with these families. I love them. I almost want to adopt them as my my parents, or just second family. I would do anything for these people. And it's taken 9 months of my life, and it's just brought complete joy to my life. And I have to say that, you know, the learning is also a lifeline for me. A lot of that learning all boils to one thing: how do we make this world a better place? So thanks to Project Inspire and to Chabad for giving me all the support that I need to get through this pandemic.
Michelle, okay, Michelle, I did not build you up too much. Everybody on the chat is saying how awesome you are, okay? So I know what I'm talking about. I always speak the truth. I tell it like it is. Michelle is awesome. I mean, that's unbelievable. You know, that's true. I mean, you talk about the concept. I don't know if anyone has ever experienced this. If you've ever traveled to Israel, people give you money and they call it, in Hebrew, it's called shaliach mitzvah money, being the messenger of that mitzvah, being that messenger of that commandment, that doing that good deed is what's going to protect you. As you said, put that shield around you. So that's exactly what we talk about all the time. And you're right, you do yours, you had your mask, you keep your distance, but you knew that doing something good was going to really help you be a better person, which all along is unbelievable. So thank you, Michelle, for sharing. I told you she's inspirational. She is awesome. So
and I just want to make one more comment. Just this whole experience of working with the elderly gave me a new perspective on that generation of people that you wouldn't really understand, because a lot of people say, oh, the elderly, you know, you just want to push them aside, but they should be cherished because they're the ones that have the history and they imparted on us. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to have a relationship with them and to support them.
Yes, I agree. They have great
Thank
wisdom.
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Michelle. Okay, so we're going to go back. We're going to see Sarah, we're going to see your finished product. Can we see the finished product, Sarah, of what your Cholent would look like in the end? We are back on. You're good. Oh, now you just have to wait. You're muted. Unmute yourself. Can you unmute?
Yeah.
There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So the Cholent's been cooking a little bit.
Ooh.
And that is obviously the barley's not cooked yet and the beans are not cooked yet. Nothing's really cooked, and it's beginning to, you can see the barley's beginning to come to the surface. So
Yes.
I'll probably at some point have to add a little bit more water to, you know, to incorporate it, or at some point I would taste the liquid to see if it needs more salt or pepper, or if I want to make it sweeter, or if I want to add anything to my Cholent. Anything can be added. You can add butternut squash if you want. Anything goes in the pot. So just feel free to have fun with it. And I'll just say one other thing.
Yes.
I have one favorite Cholent the whole year round. I wait all year Pesach for this, because Cholent, we can't use barley and we can't use beans. So
Right.
my favorite Cholent is my Pesach Cholent. All it is onions, garlic, meat, and potatoes. And I am in heaven because I'm a meat and potatoes girl. So, you know, just work whatever your family likes, stick it in and experiment and have fun with it. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Sarah. That was great. That looks so yum. Wow. Thank you so much. I love that. And I love the fact that Cholent could be done all year round. I love that you mentioned Pesach, Passover. Thank you so much. We're going to call on our next words of inspiration, Janet. Where's Janet Keller? Hi, Janet. Why don't you tell everybody where you're from, Janet?
Well, I'm part of the Queens group, and I live in Long Island,
Okay.
but I work in Queens.
Okay.
So that's how I got involved with the Queens group.
Project Inspire. So why don't you tell us a little bit, Janet, what about your inspiration and how you brought it to something practical?
Well, I tell you the truth. Of course, it involves food, you know, so really seeing the tradition of challah was something that really touched home with me, about making the dough and braiding it and cooking it, and everybody loves it. So that is definitely a practical thing that I brought home that my family just loves. And I think it also is very spiritual and peaceful. It's something that you have to take time, and it's relaxing, and everybody really loves it. So it's family time. And that's something that is really been a great difference since I went on the trips.
Wow. Yeah, I think the point that you're making, Janet, is so important, that sometimes, we're hearing different ideas in the show tonight about how people might have transitioned and made things practical with actual deeds of kindness or learning. But also sometimes, you know what? Food is tradition. Like, that's what Cholent is. That's our show tonight. When Sarah was talking about how her father-in-law would talk about in the olden days, how you would have that in Europe, that everybody would bring their Cholent pot, right, to the actual bakery. I mean, and then they would leave it there on the coals. This is something that's been around for years. And what you're saying is you're bringing that tradition back, that Project Inspire, going on those trips, really resonated with you. You know what? You said to yourself, how am I going to bring it back to my family? I'm going to do it through food. And that's great. And that's really the whole purpose of these shows. What Janet is saying exactly, that through these shows, we're trying to show everybody, you know what? You could cook. This is doable. We're breaking it down for you, these traditional foods, and you can have it in your home and pass it on from generation to generation to generation. So thank you, Janet. That was awesome. That is so true. Making that challah really makes a difference. Every little bit, anything that is traditional is what passes that baton on to the next generation. Okay, we're going to go to Miriam. Miriam is going to show us. I think we have a video, Miriam, correct?
Yeah, I took a video of my Cholent list right
Okay,
before.
so I think, Elisa, you want to show that video? Look at that Cholent in that. Oh my gosh. Wow, look at that finished product.
If you look, if you see, there's I just added a little bit of water there right before Shabbos so that it won't dry out over Shabbos. For some reason, you're not seeing the rest of the video, what's underneath. I'm not sure. But anyway, when you mix it, you can see the point is to look at the crock pot at the dial, and every crock pot's a little different. You have to experiment with it. You can put a lot of hours on high and maybe add a little water. If you see that before Shabbos it's already too dried out, you can add a little bit of water. Nothing will happen to it. It can sit on low, or it can sit on keep warm. But again, you have to experiment. I don't know if you can see there where I mixed it, so you can see what it's like underneath. Yeah, please.
Are there bones in that Cholent? Bones?
That I used called flank bones. It's flank meat and bones. It's a meat that has bones in it.
Okay, so now, yeah, because I know some people do
Flank,
some people do put marrow
I'm saying
bones
some people add marrow bones to give it.
Right.
Marrow bones.
So before we go,
right, this kind of has the bones already built in, so you don't necessarily have to do that.
Right, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do it. I'm going to present. I want to have your minds percolating. I want in the chat. We're going to have one more speaker, one more words of inspiration, and I'm going to introduce her in a second. But I want to see something interesting because Sarah was mentioning how in her son's yeshiva, the boys put beer in the Cholent. I have some crazy stuff. My son, they put it in their Cholent in his yeshiva. So if you want on the chat afterwards at the very end, I want to see all the weird things that people who've made Cholent, maybe there are people that haven't made Cholent. I want to see a list of all the weird things, and I'm going to read them off afterwards of all the original, unique, wacky stuff that people might put in their Cholent that we might not be aware of. So without further ado, I just want to introduce Debbie. Now, Debbie, this is very interesting, okay? And this is why I told Debbie we're going to end the evening with her. Because even though we've heard so many wonderful things from all the different speakers, and I'll summarize it soon in a second, just to give us little highlights of each person. Debbie is proof of something called consistency. Debbie went on one of the first trips of Momentum. Back then it was JWRP. And She has been inspired, but what is going on is that it continues to this day. She'll tell you when she went on the trip, and you're going to hear how even that back then, when she went on the trip, she made something practical, and to this day, she's still doing it. So where's Debbie? Where's Debbie? Let's put Debbie on the screen so we can hear.
Hello.
Hi, Debbie. Why don't you tell everybody where you're from? Tell them when you went on the trip, and let's hear your story.
Okay. I am Debbie Mesnick. I live in Manhattan, but I went on the trip in 2012 with the Queens group.
8 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yep, 8 years ago. So the way I found out about this trip is that I am a pediatrician, and one of the group leaders from Queens is married to a pediatrician, Jay Begun, and Tova Begun is one of the leaders from the Queens group. And I was talking to Jay in the nursery, newborn nursery at Mount Sinai Hospital, and he started telling me about this trip that his wife was going on, a women's trip to Israel. And I said, oh, well, I'm not religious. She's not going to want me to come. And he said, well, you're exactly who they want to come. I said, oh, okay, this sounds kind of interesting. And I met with Tova and Golda and Hannah and the other group leaders, and they were telling me about the trip. And it seemed like such an amazing opportunity. But, I have a busy life. I work as a physician. At that time, my children, I had one 5th grader and one 1st grader. I'd have to leave them with my husband, who's also a physician. And it just felt like, how was I going to make this happen for myself? How could I take this time for myself? And my husband generously agreed to stay home with the kids while I went on this trip. And, life is crazy when you're working and you have young children. And, I felt guilt, and I felt, I didn't feel like I was going to be able to separate from my life at home and be able to really enjoy my time when I was in Israel. But I was so surprised by how much I was able to appreciate just to have this time to focus on myself, being a woman, a Jewish woman with children, experience Israel with other women who are raising children. And, it was just a time when I could kind of quiet myself and think about things without all the outside noise. So when I came back to New York, I tried to think of a way that I could bring some light to my own family. And the one thing that I've been carrying through for sure is that I try every week to light the Shabbos candles. And the way we do it is we take time, it's Friday, everything's crazy. Kids are finishing up with school activities. My husband and I coming home from work, we're cooking, and then we say, okay, it's time to light the candles. And it's kind of a pause between all the craziness that led up to that moment. We're taking a pause, and we're going to focus on ourselves and our family. So what we like to do is when we light the candles, we close our eyes and we take a few breaths, and you bring the light in 3 times, and you just kind of focus on the words, and you focus on why you're doing it. And we're just quiet for a few minutes, taking deep breaths and trying to quiet down all the outside noise and just be together with Shabbos. And we really find that by doing that, it gives a nice separation for the rest of the week from the rest of the week. And it kind of, especially during COVID, the weeks just kind of blended into each other in some ways. And it was a real way to kind of distinguish one week from the next and to really kind of reset. So it's something that, I learned through the trip, and, it's really something that's brought a lot of value going forward. So.
See, I told you guys, something that she took on, and she's still doing it to this day. 8 years, and that is key. And that's what I want to share with everybody. You know, before I get like in serious mode, if you started putting some stuff in the chat, I'll tell you right now, I started writing down some things. Someone said they put oatmeal in their Cholent. Other people said they put a shawarma spice, red wine, a can of baked beans. What else did I have there? Maple syrup, sweet potatoes. So far, no one beat, we're going to tell you what my son's yeshiva does in his school. No one beat that yet. There's also kishka. You know, that came up before much earlier in the chat. People said, what about kishka? You might find that in the freezer department in your supermarket, and you could put that in. I know many years ago, I put in something called jachnun. Jachnun is a Yemenite dough. Hot sauce, we got a hot sauce. Okay, yes, if you like it nice, it's honey. Someone had mentioned honey, but hot sauce is a big one. So you ready? You ready to hear what my son's yeshiva they put in the Cholent? Are you ready for this? This is really crazy. Okay, I think it beats beer. They put in Pepsi, and the Bisley super snack, onion. The onion Bisley super snack. So I guess that's how they get the onion flavor. Someone said potato goggle. Yes, that's yum. I do that. I take a portion of my potato kugel, I wrap it up in tin foil, and I put it just like Sarah was saying about the eggs. I put that on top of the Cholent and cover it up, and then you get this yummy, hot, brown potato kugel that for the next day, which is awesome. So without further ado, I'd love to summarize just 1 second. Ahuva. Hello? I'm trying to get my daughter's attention. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. What I'd love to do is just remind everybody, there's amazing programs that we have here. I know a lot of people really love Project Inspire's Taste of Shabbos. I appreciate the feedback is awesome that everybody gives. But I want to review here amazing insights besides just the cooking that we saw tonight. Let's talk about some of the amazing insights that we received. Think about that concept of that Mitzvah Friday that Cheryl gave us, dedicating day and being more mindful of doing kind deeds and doing wonderful things for people. Or how about talking about making a room for Shabbos? Now that is the coolest. When I heard that on the phone, when she told me that originally, I just loved that idea. The idea of if you can't do it all, you don't have to. You take it baby steps. One step at a time is so important. One step at a time. After that, we heard about being a messenger of Hashem and having this mitzvah, that it surrounds you, it protects you, as Michelle was saying, and how she didn't know what she was going to do with COVID. Or Janet was telling us about, this is the whole show. Tradition is passed down through food, and that's okay too. That it's wonderful. I'm passing on that baton through the food. And lastly, none of this matters without what Debbie is saying, and that is consistency. Okay, that is crucial. That it's not 1 week. I'm not showing my practicality one time. It's not a one-time deal, ladies. This is something that we could do week in and week out. And there's a flyer, I think, Eliza, if there are people that are interested in learning. I know, like I had mentioned that I learned with Michelle once a week. If you want to learn more about something so that you can incorporate it and you can make anything that inspired you tonight into something practical, get in touch with Project Inspire. They'll set you up with one-on-one learning. There's so much out there. There's so much that we could all do. And I want to thank everybody. And we'll see you next week. I think next week we're talking about desserts. Yummy, yummy. And I want to thank Manhattan. I know this was challenging. These are challenging times. I know a lot of people have vacated the city and it's hard to regroup. And I so appreciate you stuck with it. You committed, you did it. You showed us these yummy, yummy Cholents, whether it be a regular Hamisha home, traditional Cholent, or it was the gluten-free Cholent. I want to thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for sitting in your home and watching me on Zoom. And we'll see you next week. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Jordana.
Whatever you want now. You can say hello. We could
Hello.
go.
Hello.